Good afternoon, good day, good morning. I guess whatever time you're listening to this podcast, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Startup Junkies podcast. My name is Caleb. I am joined by my podcast co-hosts, Jeff Amerine and Grace Gill of the Startup Junkie team. How's it going?
Great day to be a Razorback.
Absolutely. Great weekend of Razorback sports for those of you who are not already tuned into that. We are super excited today to have with us Denise Thomas. Denise is a respected business strategist, both here in Arkansas and across the globe. She has more than 25 years of experience in international trade. She is the CEO of the World Trade Center, Arkansas. Denise, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
We're excited to have you. I guess for starters, I feel like regardless of where individuals are listening to us at, people are familiar with the World Trade Center. What is World Trade Center Arkansas?
Well, we are here to support bilateral trade for the state. So we have an agreement with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission to facilitate trade activity. So we help move goods, people, services across the ponds. We look at it from multiple perspectives. We look at different ways that we can help you reduce the cost of your manufacturing. We look at ways to help you get new customers, identify new customers. If you want to purchase equipment or materials or things from a foreign market, we help you identify where the best locations for those things are. If you need manufacturing support where you actually want to manufacture something somewhere else, we look at working with you to help you identify that. So we really look at all aspects of trade as it relates to your company individually and what your individual company's needs are, or product and or service. One thing that people don't think about as trade dollars is tourism. So we also work with travel agencies to help them identify partnerships and opportunities for them to work with other travel agencies across the globe. Because when a client comes to Arkansas, those are considered export dollars. Just like a consulting company that may physically go somewhere else to do the work, but the income that they make, those are export dollars as well.
Give us a little bit of your background as well, Denise. I know you're a bit of a serial entrepreneur and have had your hands in lots of different things. So tell our audience a little bit more about you.
Well, I am definitely a conundrum. So I'm not someone that had a career path, and people always ask me these questions, but my background's actually in fashion. So I went to school for fashion design and marketing and always thought I would be a person who just cut and paste. And I say that with all respect because I love art. I love fashion. I love everything about it. I just think it makes my heart sing. But I happen to be good at something else. And that something else was really being able to have a vision beyond what's in front of me. Most people don't strategize when they look at growing their business. It's something that they have to really develop and grow. And for me, it just was something that came fairly easy. So I've worked in some form of economic development or small business development all of my career, more or less, whether it was for the Jacksonville Chamber when I worked in small business development. I've had several small businesses myself. The most recent is I still make jewelry and I sell jewelry, and I call it the kitchen table business because it won't go beyond that until I choose to make it go beyond that. But right now, the kitchen table business is perfect for me because I can do it at my kitchen table. And if I don't feel like making anything, nobody's mad at me. Nobody's looking for where's my next piece. Although I do still get special requests, but the kitchen table business is just good enough for me right now. Let me think. I work with clients off and on just within the World Trade Center, and then I always give my services to whoever needs help with something. I'm very supportive of others and what they want to do with their lives and their goals. So I still do quite a bit of that.
Awesome. And you oversaw trade in Africa, Europe, Middle East. How does that give us kind of, an overview of that? I'm sure you have some interesting stories to tell there, but how does that translate to the work you do now here in Arkansas?
It's all one and the same. So when I was a trade director, it was a position. So I started at the World Trade Center in basically public relations and communication. So I did all the internal PR and external PR. And then I ended up landing as a trade director. Literally, my boss, Dan Hendricks, just walked by my desk and said, "Hey, you, Denise, trade director, Africa and the Middle East now, right? Yeah, got it. Thanks." And he kept going. And if you know Dan's personality, he's very straightforward. And matter of fact, he cuts to the chase. So I was like, okay. So we'd already started doing a few things within that market. So I was doing both jobs for all intents and purposes anyway. So it just really evolved because we start seeing more and more activity coming from Africa and the Middle East. And because we sell so many food products are things that people want and things are looking for. So it was a natural fit. And I've been here at the World Trade Center, for 14 years, almost 15. I think I'm 2 months away from 15 years. The World Trade Center will be 15 in a month. So I started 1 month after our birthday,
Wow.
our day of birth. So I am the longest standing employee here, and I was the third employee at the organization. There were 2 other people besides Dan when I came on. And that history of working with the World Trade Center and watching us grow has been really an evolution of how we do things, and how we service the client has changed a bit. I think we're a lot more engaged now and a little more involved. I feel like they're a part of our family, and we are very closely related to interacting with each other, and it's very familiar. Like, we have nicknames and different things. Like, one of my clients calls me sister, so that's kind of interesting. So that's kind of evolved. I think that answers your question.
Absolutely. Okay. And you talked about some of the changes and how you work with clients. What would you say have been some changes you've seen in the last 14, 15 years in Arkansas trade trends?
The sophistication of the clients. I think that our clients are becoming more sophisticated, and they're beginning to be a lot more open-minded. We're not trying to talk people into looking at exports as an opportunity. So 97% of most US companies, the majority of their customer base, 97% of them live outside of the continental United States. So when you start looking at the math and you look at what you're doing in your business, if you're not looking at it globally, you're really doing your business, your company, and your employees a disservice. So how do you manage pulling those pieces together? So now the clients are coming to us and they have a better idea of what their target market is, what countries they want to look at, and other things that they want to do. So we try to facilitate helping them better understand the opportunities beyond what they see. So a lot of times what I find is that companies say, oh, I want to do business with usually Canada and Mexico are the top 2 because they're touch and because of our free trade agreements. So when you look at that, they say, these are the countries I want to go into. These are the markets I want to enter into. And then when we do research and we start looking at whatever their business trends are, whatever their business entity is, whatever there is that they're doing, there may be other markets that they haven't even thought about. So it's our job to kind of help open their minds. But now when we have those conversations, we don't get, well, I'm not really sure. They usually go, oh, really? Okay, yeah. And they start taking notes and they're saying, what else can you tell me? What are some of the other things? So that is different. And I think that that's really been because of the World Trade Center. People are a lot more used to hearing us talk about trade. They're a lot more relaxed. It's a lot easier for them to think about where they can go, what they can do, and the opportunities, because they realize if I am able to facilitate an opportunity to do business in a new country, I'm going to create more jobs for my company. I'm going to increase my revenue. My tax base goes up. The quality of life of our entire community gets better. So I think people beginning to really understand that trade really does help improve our lives, but it also improves the lives of the company across the pond that we're working with. They get to create more jobs. So it really is a win-win situation. So trade to me it's a solution to all of our problems when it comes to public policy and everything else that's going on. Trade more, fight less.
It's actually kind of a good segue. I'm given some of all the geopolitical stuff that we see happening in the pandemic. What's your view of the overall impact of the last 2 years of the pandemic? Has it been a net positive in terms of bringing people together, or negative? How would you characterize it?
I would say from the humanity perspective, it's been a definite positive, because what people seem to forget is that trade is also diplomacy. So when we have foreign dignitaries come, or people from different parts of the world come to the World Trade Center, we really focus on food, fun, and fellowship. I mean, it sounds crazy, but food, fun, and fellowship is the key to success with trade and with diplomacy. Because if you think about it, whenever a diplomat comes, even to the White House, what happens? There's a reception of some kind. There's always a little bit of alcohol, some food, some fellowship, lots of laughter, and people seem very happy. What happens is you begin to develop relationships with these people, and they become your friends, and you want to do business with people that are your friends. And what COVID did is it put everybody on the exact same level playing field. We were all dealing with the same problem at the same time. And we had empathy, compassion for one another. So from that perspective, I think we'll do business differently because there's something that we have in common now. And that's going to last us a few years because that's something that's not easily forgotten. When you hear someone say, oh, around this time, around the time of COVID, we'll have that as a part of our business post-COVID, during COVID, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. All of these words are going to be a part of our business vocabulary. So that helps you go to a space and time in your life. It's kind of like people who lived through the Great Depression. Even my great grandmother would tell me stories about the Depression, and she would say, oh, before the Depression, we used to do this, or after the Depression, we used to do this. So that's going to be our generation, little language. It's kind of like our own little code of how we're going to do stuff. But when you think about it from the perspective of business, that is also something that I think can be a positive if we allow it to be a positive. Meaning, if we talk about it from the perspective of during this time, we had a shortage. We are looking at how we fill our supply chain differently. We're looking at nearshoring. We're looking at how we can do business more effectively in a more consolidated, consensus way. It's no longer uncomfortable to have these very deep business conversations via Zoom. You don't necessarily absolutely have to get on a plane and fly to wherever to meet this person face to face. We've learned and adjusted on how to do business virtually, and it's working. And in some cases, it's working more effectively, because you can happen a lot quicker. You don't have to wait 3 weeks or 2 weeks or a month or 6 months to go see that company. You can go, and you even have meetings where people are walking through on FaceTime showing you, hey, this is what's coming off. This is what it looks like. This is your product, So all of these things, I think these things are good. On the negative side, what I see is that we are all a little afraid and a little gun shy, so to speak. I don't know if that's a good word or not, but we're afraid of the unknown because what's next? Because this has lasted for 2 years, 2 years of our lives, we've been shut in and limited everything. We're all kind of paranoid. What's next? What else is happening? And within that 2-year period of time, there has been a whole lot of stuff happening all over the world. Some good, not so good, and some not so good. And I think we just have to look at the world differently and how we do business differently and be open-minded to that. Now, when it comes to public policy and the things happening, let's just say with Russia and Ukraine, all of that is scary. But what we have to remember is this: in every few years, all over the world, there's these hotspots, things pop up. It's constant. And it has always been. Change is inevitable, and what we see is inevitable. In some shape, form, or fashion, there's going to be something to happen every day and every year. And we have to adjust to that. And we have to get used to things that make us uncomfortable, because everybody's making some kind of a pivot in how they do business and what their ideal situation is for their government, for their people, and, for their countrymen. And that's what we're experiencing. That's what we see playing out. We don't have to agree with it, but it is what it is. And it's going to happen either there or somewhere else. It's constantly changing. And we just have to get used to the fact that there's a constant change. We no longer are going to have these little moments of just where it kind of settles in and it's quote unquote business as usual. This is business as usual. Change, pivot.
Expect the unexpected. There's two kind of seminal books in the last 20 years. One was about the black swan events, the unexpected things that no one could predict, the financial crisis, maybe the pandemic. There was a kind of a contrarian view called, no, they're really gray rhinos. And the gray rhino book was all about, these are things that are obvious, we just refuse to see. Right. And the fact that we have had these sorts of events are things that easily could be predicted. We just failed to see it. Sometimes we have the blinders on. And I think your perspective is right on. The idea of just build a resilient company and be ready for the unexpected.
Yeah. Now, when you're talking about it from a company perspective, I think that resiliency is key. There's something else that I would challenge people listeners with is professional emotional maturity. We lack it. So many of us lack it. And those are the things that really make the difference in your company. When you are resilient and you do have emotional maturity, and we always say that relates to personal life, but it doesn't. It plays right into how you do business and how you structure your company, how you operate, how you manage and lead your people. Because when you have resilience and emotional maturity, you're going to operate your company in a far more professional manner, and you're going to be more effective in what you're doing because you're doing it from a different perspective. You're not doing it from fear-based leadership. You're not doing it from top-down leadership. You're not doing it because you're profit-driven. You're driven towards doing the right thing at the right time and being willing to take responsibility for it and making that decision quickly. And many of us don't do that.
Grace, I know you're itching to ask a question.
Well, I was just going to say, so kind of going off of that, would you say that you're starting to see a lot of these businesses actually accepting that this is the new normal and not just waiting for things to go back to how they were? Or is there still a lot of hesitant, decision making of like, oh, well, we don't know what's going to happen? Like, are our businesses starting to really jump on that, especially here in Northwest Arkansas? Is that starting to grow?
I think it's 50-50. I think you're halfway there. And I mean, I think that in time, people will get used to the fact that, there is no normal. You need to nearshore, period, end of story. You need to, because that's going to save your company money, and it's going to help you hold the jobs that you have. And then ultimately, with your sales growing with exports, with the World Trade Center, you'll see that all of a sudden now you can hire more people and you see better things. So I think it's 50-50. I think people are halfway there, but it's something that it takes some of us a little bit longer. And we operate based on what our past experiences have been. Even though we say we don't bring that part of that into our business life or into our companies, you certainly do, because you're there and your experiences are what you're making your decisions based off of. And sometimes those decisions are based and grounded in something that's untrue. So one of the things that I talk about quite a bit with the companies when I do consulting with them is I say that, the majority of the things that you have told yourself about business and in life in general are wrong. We make up stories about things and we say that that's true when it's absolutely positively not the truth. 95% of the thoughts that you had today were the thoughts that you had for years back, going way, way back. And 85% of those thoughts are just straight myth. And we bring all of that into our decision-making and into the structure of how we're running and operating our companies. And if you think that that's going to help you grow, it may have served you well to a point, but it's not going to help you get from here to there. Eventually, you're going to hit a roadblock and you're going to have to deal with you as to why that is. That's why I go back to emotional maturity and resilience are key to success. Know who you are, know your shortcomings, know your shortfall, know what you're good at, know what you're not good at, be okay with it, because that's what makes you you. And that's why you hire better, so that you can improve those areas and make your business more successful.
In addition to coming to the World Trade Center, if you want to do business internationally, what are a handful of tips? Someone, they're thinking about expanding. They want to get maybe some kind of bilateral, maybe they want to source, maybe they want to sell. How should they think about that?
So there is a website called export.gov, and that is put out by the U.S. Department of Commerce. And that is absolutely positively the best place to start. And literally just get on there, and they have a search box, and you type in a country or you type in a product, and all of this information pops up for you. And that's where we tell everybody to get started. There's a checklist on that website called Export Readiness. And with export readiness, it asks you a series of questions. And you can look at those questions and say, hey, you know what, we are ready to export. Because most people think that when they're going to sell a product, it's just as easy as selling something to someone here in the States. Well, it's a little more complicated. Depending on what product it is, it might be a lot more complicated. So understanding those things, and that's really where we start. And when you come to us, to the World Trade Center, and you say, hey, I want to look at exporting or whatever your widget may be, we kind of understand what your market is and what some of the things are that you need to know to help you get started, and really identifying the right market for your product. And that's really the best place to start.
Great advice. I selfishly want to know, Denise, what interesting story you might have from a trade mission or trade trip, or a dignitary you hosted. Share with our listeners a fun anecdote.
Yeah. I would say there's probably quite a few, but there's one that I'm thinking of right now where we took a fairly large delegation to Ghana, and the honorary consul general Sherman Banks lives in Little Rock, and he led that particular trade mission. And we had several small businesses, and the thing that stands out to me about that was many of them had never been to Africa before, and it was just an aha moment for them, because Africa can be overly stimulating if you've never been before. There's a whole lot of going on around you, and there are things that are just unfamiliar. And what I thought was really interesting was we went to several different villages, and every village offered a gift, offered food, offered dance, a celebration, some type of ceremony, and dancing. And you were expected to dance. Well, some of these people are just complete introverts. So you're thinking, we got to do what? Okay, the food and fun, okay, but you want me to get up? They may come over and bring you the drums, and you have to beat the drums. And all of this is a celebration of the visit and an expression of gratitude for you being there. So from that perspective, I think those celebrations are the things that are life-changing for people, because it really helps you see. We visited a school, and the thing that really touched me about the school visit was an elementary school. We visited several, but this one was in particular because it was very rural. And most of the kids had on one shoe, not two shoes, just one. And I noticed one had on a left, some had on a right. And then I started picking up that that's the same pair, but one kid had on different shoes. Well, the way that the policy is written, the kids had to go to school with shoes, but it didn't say shoes, it said shoe, dot, the S was left off. So the kids would go home with two shoes. They would leave home with two shoes, but they would share a shoe with their friend that didn't have a shoe and go to school because they had a shoe. And you think about how we are and how we have to drag our kids sometimes to go. And these kids are saying, I'm going to go even though I only have one shoe. So it makes you think about your life differently, and it makes you reprioritize how you do things and how you see the world. That was just one trip. I've got thousands of others. I would say the one thing that I have learned the most about the world is that we have way more in common than we don't. And kindness, a smile, a humble heart, and being loving takes you so much further, because everybody can respond to that, even if you don't agree.
It's a universal language.
It is, and it works. Definitely.
So what's next for the World Trade Center? I know you've been in the leadership role. Where are you taking it the next several years?
We have big goals. So we're trying to do a lot more events here at the World Trade Center within the state, and bringing larger delegations, things that would put Arkansas in front of some of the activities that we see as it relates to trade policy. I want to have a voice for trade policy, because we are a small rural state with food as our primary export and aerospace as a primary export. Those are some of the things that we want to work on. We want to be able to say that Arkansas is first in something, and being very positive about that, and being very mindful about that, because I do feel, I always say I'm a foreigner in a strange land. I'm from California. I'm a native Californian, born and raised. I've been here for 21 years now. This is home for me. This is where I choose to say I'm an Arkansan, and I say it with pride. And I want to see Arkansas in front of international diplomacy and being a place where you come to do business because you choose to, because we do things differently. I always say we're going to do things the Arkansas way: friendly, warm, nurturing, and kind. And that's really how we are as a state. I mean, generally speaking, we're nice people. And I love that. And I love bringing people here to show them how wonderful we are. So we're looking at larger events. We're looking at opportunities for our companies to be in front of a lot more opportunities with other markets within our big three exports. We want to be able to assist them making better choices and looking at alternative ways. So before we were a little more reactive. I'd like us to be more proactive. So we're looking at bringing on interns, and these interns will work with the trade directors and facilitating and better understanding additional markets. So let's say for the aerospace industry, the parts that you make for some planes, you can also make on boats. So can we look at markets for them to look at boats? Can we make locks for boats? Can we make other parts for boats? Can these parts be applicable in a different type of application beyond aerospace? What are these parts? What do these look like? What markets are they in? What countries are they in? How can we tap into those markets? Who do we need to contact? So kind of creating like this whole action plan of looking at where are the growth opportunities for the companies that are already doing these products. Because we do have machine parts, what are some of these other applications with these machine parts? What are some of the applications with the food and the food products that we have? Are there other markets we should be looking at? Those are the types of things that we're trying to do. And if we can get in front of that, then we can be very proactive in bringing those government officials and potentially inbound trade missions to us to see that, which again, what does that do? That's tourism. So it boosts our economy there, and it gives us exposure on a diplomacy. And it also gives us international recognition for saying, hey, this is what we're doing. The World Trade Center has 300, the World Trade Center Association has 300 licensed World Trade Centers. We are a part of that network. So can we work closer with them to create more opportunity for our Arkansas companies? And the answer is yes, but we have to have a plan and a strategy for that. And that's what we're working towards right now.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's fun. I tell everybody I have the best job ever. I love what I do. Love what I do. Absolutely. I get up every day excited about it. It makes me happy in every possible way. And if I look back on my life as a young person, I would have never, ever imagined me, little Denise, doing this and having the opportunity to impact so many lives and so many companies. That really makes a difference. And that's what I like the most about it, is that even the smallest little detail helps someone achieve a goal, and connecting people together helps achieve a goal. And sometimes the connections that we make aren't quote unquote Arkansas centric, but still being able to be a part of that energy that comes along with it. And then later figuring out how Arkansas can benefit from that is really, really, that's important to me.
We perfectly teed up our land the plane question, Denise, and that is, if you had the opportunity to go back in time, looking at a crystal ball, whether that be 15 years ago, 21 years ago, and give yourself advice, knowing what you know now, what might that advice be?
I think about that quite a bit. And the honest answer to that is I would change nothing, but I would tell myself, calm down, don't be so excited, and it's okay. It all works out. Because I think the experiences, no matter how painful they may have been or how confused I may have been, the end result is what I'm doing right now. But the real end is the legacy that I leave behind. And all of this came to today because of those past experiences. So why would you change that when you landed in a place that you have joy, you have peace, you have happiness? I have a contribution. I have a wonderful life, and I'm happy. I don't know that it was worth every minute of everything, even going to fashion school, and it landed me here. And if one thing had been different, I may not be in this position. I may not have this opportunity.
Important to enjoy the winding road, right?
Yeah. The road less traveled, it's okay. Because there's still yet a story to be told. The next chapter is yet to be told. And what will that be?
Fantastic. Where can we do have listeners evidently in over 100 countries, over 100,000 downloads. Where can they find out more about the Arkansas World Trade Center, and what's the best way for them to reach out?
The best way to reach out is arwtc.org, arwtc.org, arkansasworldtradecenter.org. And my email, I'll give that email, is denisett@uark.edu, denisett@uark.edu.
Thank you so much for coming on. It was a great conversation. We're really glad you were able to take some time with us, and best of luck for the next 15 years of your journey.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I really enjoyed the conversation.
And whenever you're in our neighborhood, swing by, we'll have that beer.
We will, or bourbon.
Sounds good.
All right.
Sounds
See you,
good.
Denise. Thanks.
All
so
right.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.